How's everyone doing today? Thanks for tuning in to check out my $150 tool challenge. Uh, Basically, here the story on this is that my brother was wanting to get a nice set of home tools, and he was ready to go and buy stuff new. And I said, well, hold on, let me see just how much I can put together for you, for how much you have to spend. He didn't have just a whole lot. He didn't want to wrap up a whole lot, and so I said, well, we'll take it on as a personal challenge. He had plenty of time. He didn't mind waiting. So basically, I set up a challenge for myself that for 150 bucks, just how much can I get, and what kind of quality can I go ahead and pack into this thing when it's all said and done. So essentially, I'm kind of lucky that I live in an area of the country that has a ton of pawn shops and also a couple flea markets that I can go to pretty regularly. So I was able to get 95% of this pulled out. It's all used. There's a couple things that I managed to find new, but generally speaking, it's all used. And I was able to stay within my budget. So just want to run through pretty much what I got, point out a couple things that I was particularly happy with, and then we'll wrap it up. So first off, a couple Milwaukee tape measures. Managed to find those two different locations. Happened to be the same brand, so that was cool. DeWalt bit box that was about half empty when I found it, but I had a couple extra bits in the garage that I could fill it out with. Cobalt wallboard saw, hide scraper, brass craft tubing cutter, little Empire torpedo level. Managed to find that was brand new, and I found that in a pawn shop bin for a couple bucks. Klein 20-ounce claw hammer, little Wiss M1 snips. I used to be an electrician, and I was able to find this set of Klein side cutters, which I think is essential for any toolbox. These I only got for $2. They were pretty rusted up and frozen when I got them, but managed to take them home. They were sandblasted. I cleaned them up on the wire wheel after that with brass wire wheel. Puts a nice patina on, and then sliced off the old ratty plastic and went ahead on Amazon, ordered the Klein coat handles, and that I have about $10–11 wrapped up in, but I was super happy when they came out. I think that's going to be a tool that'll last them a long time. I was able to find the little Crescent high leverage cutters, a pair of Klein offsets, old CT, pair of pliers, Cobalt needle nose, which are not great but not terrible, Klein strippers, vice grips, couple sets of vice grips. $2 and $3 I think at the flea market is what I paid for those. Adjustable wrenches, that's one of the Crestalloy 12 inches, and then a little Williams 8-inch. That Williams was also completely rusted shut. That was a sandblast and cleanup as well. A little stamped aluminum scraper, made in USA. And then these I thought were pretty cool too. I found these for a couple bucks in a pawn shop bin. I believe these were Craftsman. The name is since gone, but they was back probably in the 80s or 90s when they're still chroming their tools. I ended up putting these in the sandblaster with really fine grit and cleaning them up very lightly. I didn't want to pull any of the chrome off. And then hitting them with the brass wire wheel, and it put a really kind of nice satin patina on there. I think this will be a great tool, last a long time. I was really happy with how those turned out. In terms of screwdrivers, here in my area of the country, we have some of the Habitat for Humanity renovation stations, and they ended up getting a bunch of these Vermont American claw cushion handled screwdrivers in. They had hundreds of these in buckets for $5, basically a buck a piece. So I went ahead and picked up everyone that had a couple sets of these that have the plastic handle. Super comfortable. I don't think there's any really a way to warranty them, but they are USA made screwdriver, and like I said, for the price, I couldn't beat a buck a pop. I also find a bunch, just in general, I find a bunch of the old Western Forge acetate handle Craftsmans. They're all different vintage, different composites on the acetate, and as long as you don't mind your tool smelling a little bit pukey or kind of like feet, depending on what the mix of the acetate is and what the condition is, they're actually a really good quality screwdriver, and they will last a long time. And I have about a buck, maybe 75 cents wrapped up in each one of those, depending on where I found them and what else I bought them with. But overall, I filled out a nice little screwdriver set that should do them really well. Also really happy about this one. This is Witt or Vita, the German company. This is the company that makes the screwdrivers for Matco, and this is one of their ratcheting screwdrivers. I found this in a pawn shop tool bin for $2. I got it so cheap because the ratcheting mechanism was completely frozen up, and it took me a while to figure out how to pull it apart, but managed to get it completely apart, completely disassembled, cleaned up, re-greased, and reassembled, and now works absolutely perfectly. And I think that'll make a nice little tool for him to use over time, and that should last a good long time. DeWalt utility knife, nothing special there. Just have one of those in my own box. They're pretty good. I wanted to find full hex key sets, but that's impossible to find used because they're always missing one. Far more common are these little foldable adjustable sets, and that's a Klein SAE and a Chesco metric. I think that'll do well enough for a home tool set. I was really happy with what I did with wrenches. I'd wanted to find a Craftsman raised panel set in both metric and standard, and these are constantly in the wrench bins and just the cast off bins at flea markets. And if you're willing to put some time in to kind of make matching sets, it did take 5 months, let me tell you, and I had to look at a bunch of different places, but I was able to do 95% of what I wanted to do. The only thing that I couldn't find was the 11/16 in SAE, and that's actually an SK from, my guess would be from the 80s, an SK raised panel, and still USA made, so I was happy with I stuck with that. These are all the Craftsman V and VA series. You can tell there's different shines on the chrome. They all came from different, a lot of different suppliers at a lot of different times, so they're not 100% exact, but I think overall it's a pretty decent set for what I have wrapped up in it, which is probably averaging about $1 a wrench when it was all said and done. There are a couple 6-points wrapped up in the metric set. Couldn't get around it. That's the only way I could complete the set size wise. For sockets, I went with Duralast. They tend to be found in pawn shops a lot. Here in my area of the country, we have a lot of AutoZones, and Duralast is their house brand. So I was able to get a matching set of sockets in both, in 1/4" and 3/8. Overall, not bad. I keep these in my own work box, and they tend to work pretty well. I've never had an issue breaking a socket, and I've never had to warranty one of their ratchets. And speaking of which, the Duralast ratchet is basically an older style snap-on clone. They're not terrible. They're, like I said, I've never had to warranty one. You get a nice solid click on them when you use them, and the tooth count is fairly fine given what they are. So, like I said, I was pretty happy with that. And for warranty issues, I wanted to make sure that if my brother did need to warranty something out, that would be available to him. There's AutoZones everywhere, so that wasn't that big a deal. Probably have another few bucks wrapped up in a couple extra extensions and those spark plug sockets that didn't come with the set. I had to go ahead and ditch the original blow molded cases because he wanted everything to fit in one toolbox to make it easier to transport. I can totally understand that. Rails, Harbor Freight, not great, not terrible, just cheap. You get them for $3 for a set of all three. A little Nicholson 4-way file. Those are always handy to have around. Toolbox wise, I managed to find this at a pawn shop. It's an old Kennedy style, and it might have actually been manufactured by Kennedy and just rebranded to whoever this is. But brown, crinkle finish, was really dirty and greasy when I found it, but overall cleaned up really nicely. I had some of this Harbor Freight 1/4" floor foam scraps that I had in the garage, so I went ahead and put a liner in the bottom of it. There was a little bit of paint peeling and rust pitting on the bottom, but still pretty solid. And believe it or not, all of this fits in here. It's tight, but it will fit, and that'll give them a nice toolkit when it's all said and done. So overall, how much did I spend? I tried to get, like I said, my original price point, he had said between 100 and 150. I went for the high side on 150, and I got everything here for about 140. Like I said, some of this stuff was negotiable, and I had to kind of get a range of what I spent, but I tried to keep everything as cheap as possible. And I managed to do it for I know I was under the 150 point when it's all said and done. Now that is including some time and effort, or it doesn't include the time and effort that it took to clean up a lot of the things. Like a lot of the wrenches were really rough, the Kleins, the channel locks, but I don't mind doing that kind of stuff. And a lot of the Craftsman screwdrivers needed their handles cleaned up. But, I don't mind putting a little elbow grease into it if it gets a nice set when it's all said and done. I did a rough pricing of what it would have cost to buy everything either new or off eBay. and I got somewhere probably between 350 and 400 for everything. So I think overall getting everything for under 150 here was a pretty good deal, and I was happy with the overall result, and I think that he will be too when it's all said and done. So thanks for tuning into the video today. If you have any questions, please feel free, leave them in the comment section below, and I'll do whatever I can to help you out, answer them up. Have a great day.